Welcome back to the show. My name's Christian, and today I have my very good friend Bill on. Bill is a photographer and just a very awesome and very quirky, interesting guy. I would say, like,
yeah, sure.
I would say you're quirky.
I guess, yeah.
Get you.
I think quirky is ambiguous, so I might be quirky.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah,
I view quirky as like a positive thing.
sure.
It's kind of like nerdy. Like you say nerdy, I'm like, yes.
I had this conversation with someone recently, actually one of my brides, and she called herself a nerd.
Okay.
And she said she's like a detail organized nerd. I'm like that's good.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's interesting when you're young, nerd means something bad.
Like in school and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because if you went back in time, you're just like, oh, someone just basically said I'm really passionate about something and I know a lot about it.
And
So, hey, thanks.
yeah, in the adult world, it's like you
Right.
want to be passionate about something. Like,
But the person delivering the nerd comment isn't able to even comprehend what they just said
right.
because they're not usually nerds. They're not usually that passionate or
That's
really
true.
intelligent about anything. So they just say, "Oh, you're a nerd." Like, thanks. Yes,
Bill,
actually.
Bill,
I am.
were you a nerd in high school, and middle school, and all that?
I don't think I was ever called a nerd, but I wasn't popular.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was
I was a nerd.
I was just
I was
there.
called a nerd.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been called a nerd. I've been called other things, and I
me
don't know if
too.
I could mention them all here. But I don't think I was ever called a nerd. But I wasn't popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a popular kid. I was just there.
Same.
Best way to describe
yeah.
me. I was
yeah.
just there.
Yeah. I was definitely not
Yeah.
popular. I also can't listen with the headphones while I podcast because then I like listen to my own
I can't do
voice.
that. Yep.
I don't like it. So I'll put the headphones on to like check levels and everything, make sure it all sounds good, but then get rid of it.
I don't mind listening to my own voice, and that just sounds like narcissistic. But I used to, but I got into music. Well, here we go. We're talking about me. Things that have nothing to do with photography.
Doesn't matter.
Like years ago, I got into music, writing music, playing music, singing, and it was really hard to. It's kind of weird to hear yourself talk on a recording, but it's even weirder for me to hear yourself sing. So when I would sing and I had to listen to it, it's that sensation of, oh, do I really sound like that when I'm talking? But like times 10
because you're singing. Yeah.
And I'm like, do I really sound like that when I'm singing? And I'm like, oh man.
Now, why singing?
And
Why is singing so much worse than talking in terms of like hearing the playback?
I guess it's just it's more vulnerable. Because if you're just talking, it doesn't matter what note I'm hitting,
Right.
or how I'm speaking, because it's just not necessarily monotone, but to a closer degree to monotone.
Right.
But if you're singing and there's a very defined melody, right away everyone is, and yourself included, is a bit of a critic, because you can tell if someone's singing well or not, just in terms of like the notes that they're hitting or not.
Right. Because you have that idea of what a chord is and the relationship. And if you're playing with music, you're not just singing a cappella. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's trickier because you don't have a reference point to your notes. So yeah, in another life, I played guitar, I sang, and I wrote music. And you talking about yourself and it sounding weird, hearing yourself made me think of that. Made me think of listening to myself sing. Yeah.
Well, no, so as I'm sure you know, I do a lot of self-recorded videos. I wouldn't necessarily say vlogs, because I'm not just like going around, hey, this is what I'm doing, but like I'm still filming myself. I'm still talking to, the audience, which is just the camera lens. And then I have to edit that as well. and I just hear myself on playback, and it's like when I first started doing it, it took me a lot longer to edit just because I was cringing a whole lot more.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to.
Right. And I think luckily this happened for me. But after that first video, I got a lot of positive response, and that kind of like shut my inner critic up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I want to hate my voice, but people are paying me money because they liked my first video, so I can suck it up.
There you go.
It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and I mean, even though that happened, it's still difficult sometimes. Sometimes when I'm just like you just have your on days, or like when you're really, really on, and you just like have the perfect words come to mind right away, and you just boom, you deliver the line, and you're like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't ever have any of those days.
I don't believe that. No way.
I don't know if I deliver the perfect line, but yeah, it's there's certainly on and off days,
right?
And it's hearing yourself talk or sing. It's kind of, for me, it's been a little more like I know, like, I'm not Freddie Mercury, so I'm not expecting to be, but it's more it's like, I know I just sang that, or I know I just said that, but it doesn't sound like me. So it's not even like, oh, I'm not good enough at singing, or maybe I'm not good enough at public speaking, or just speaking in a podcast, because it's just kind of, it's weird. It's like you just said something or sang something, and then someone singing it back that's not you. And it has to do with the acoustics in our head.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I read an article, if you talk like this.
Yeah,
exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. that is what your voice actually sounds like.
Okay.
To other people.
Yes.
Because this is blocking some of the acoustics.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So a lot of the lower frequencies come from your chest.
Yep.
Because your lungs are in your chest. Like a lot of sound is reverberating from your chest. And since the chest is connected to your body and connected to your ears, you get that connection. You feel that more than anyone else, because this sound has to travel for someone else, but the sound is in you,
right,
when you speak it. That's very interesting. Because I've always thought that too, where it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like me.
So if you see someone walking around on the street like this, there's a reason they're doing it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what reason it is. It might be the reason I discussed. It might be another reason.
Well, if I see someone doing this,
right,
I'm be like, oh, hey, there's Bill.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
I'm pretty sure it would just be you doing it.
Just be like, oh, hey, you're trying to figure out what your voice actually sounds like. And if they're singing, you're trying to see what your singing voice actually sounds like. Yeah.
Maybe maybe I'll tell that to brides and grooms, because
you probably
precaution.
Get that. You probably get that from them, right?
Yeah.
When they're like, you have them read their vows, or you have them read something, and you probably get the, oh, do I sound like that?
I get a lot of prerequisite, like prefacing. I get a lot of, oh well, I don't like the way my voice sounds, or oh, I'm awkward on camera, and I'm like, you'll be fine.
Right.
Trust me. I have edited a lot of voices. I have EQ'd and audio mixed a lot of different voices.
I think that's an interesting topic of conversation, because I don't deal with audio, obviously, as a photographer. You do. I feel like it's not too difficult. I mean, with experience, comes, a better skill set in anything. But I feel like it's not too tough for me to get people comfortable in front of the camera, because I don't have them usually looking at the camera. I don't usually have them camera aware.
Sure.
So one thing I say to them is, if they're like, we're not really used to having our picture taken, I say, are you guys used to looking at each other? And I might even have them look at each other like during a consultation. Like, how does that feel? and they always laugh.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, and I'll go click. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want. Click. So that's not too tough for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't just change their voice. They can't change the tone of their voice.
Sure.
So if they're not used to hearing themselves talk and they're like, oh, I kind of sound weird when I'm talking, I guess you could get them a vocal coach before the wedding and have them work on their inflection, but that's not practical.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. Yeah. I don't think anyone would want to do that.
But I can get people, okay, you're not used to having your picture taken. Well, just don't look at the camera, and I don't do a lot of traditional look at the camera pictures anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and every other photographer for the most part.
Right. Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is it a trend or is it a personal preference or both of not looking like having not many photos of looking at the camera, which I guess we would call the formal traditionals.
Yeah.
Is looking at the camera.
Yeah. I always do traditional formal pictures. But that doesn't encompass a lot of the wedding day. But I think those are classic. Those are traditional. I think that those are images that, and it has happened, even just in the last few years, my couples post an image or they reach out to me and they say, so-and-so has since passed since you shot the wedding, and they were in the formal pictures. So, sometimes it's just the way it is. People don't want to talk about it, but if you talk about it in a certain way, it's really a beautiful thing. This might be the last time that all of these people are together,
Yeah.
It's 'cause, getting this side of the family and this side of the family together and just getting everyone in one place. I mean, that's really difficult. And if you're having a wedding, it's kind of a good way to get people motivated to come, but it's really hard to get that many people together. Usually that many people come together for a wedding or a funeral, and there aren't a lot of pictures being taken at a funeral.
Right.
So the traditional pictures are very important. And smile, look at the camera, traditionally posed. That's certainly something I do, but that is like the only part of the wedding day that's like that. And so the rest of it, that's a photojournalistic style, which basically just means it's a fancy way of saying they're not looking at the camera.
Candidates.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not really, it depends on how you define photojournalism, like true photojournalism. Mm-hmm. And I've heard some people define it as a complete unawareness of the camera. And then that gets into, well, if you're unaware of the camera for even just a few seconds, then that's photojournalism. Like people have told me they forget I'm there, even if I'm talking to them. Like I'm talking to them and then someone walks in the room or, someone does something and there's a reaction.
Right.
And they don't even remember that I took that picture. So even if for that couple seconds they're camera unaware, that's truly photojournalism. And then a photojournalistic style is, they're not looking at the camera, they're looking at each other, they're engaged in the environment, but they still know that you're there.
Sure.
Which is fine. I mean, they hired you, they want you to be there.
Right.
So is that photojournalistic style a trend? I guess it is. It's very common.
Right.
I do hear, and I've said this in the past, I shoot in a photojournalistic style. Most photographers that I hear talk or what they have on their sites, or clearly just by looking at their images, it's in a photojournalistic style. Mm-hmm. So is it a trend? I don't know if it's a trend necessarily, because trend could imply that it's limited in duration.
It'll fade.
Like it's going to fade. And I don't see things going back to a very old school, the whole day, we're going to stop what we're doing and smile and look at the camera. And then we're going to have our first dance. We're going to stop and smile and look at the camera. Right. We're going to dance with, the bride's going to dance with her father. We're going to stop and we're going to look at the camera and smile. I don't see it going back there. I see it kind of continuing in the direction that it's going, which is just that mostly photojournalistic style. But there are still some traditional photographers out there that are still doing the, first dance, and then here's the couple, they're looking at the camera smiling, and then here's, dancing with mom or dancing with dad, stopping, looking at the camera smiling, getting ready, getting dressed, looking at the camera smiling.
Right.
And that's something that some people like. That's something that some people do. It's just a different style. And there's not one right way or one wrong way. But most of the people that I know and I look at are a photojournalistic style.
So I caught one part, or one part rather caught my attention specifically. I was listening to the whole thing.
I was gonna say you got one thing, just one. Well, that's okay. That's
No,
better than none.
I listened to it all, but one part specifically caught my attention when you said that some couples forget like that you're there even when you're talking to them.
Sure.
How do you talk to them? Like I mean that sounds like
they're not forgetting right when I'm talking to them, unless they might want to talk to a specialist if they're actually forgetting that they're talking to someone.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
No. They know
so
you're
to
there.
Clarify,
Yes.
although sometimes people talk to me and I don't know.
You're zoned out.
I don't remember anything. So they could simply just be saying they zoned out.
Right.
But what I meant was that, I'd be talking to them and then there's some break in me saying something.
Mm-hmm.
And, it could be something as simple as, oh, I didn't know. Like recently I was actually doing formals, but this was in the midst of the formals where there was a ladybug on the bride's bouquet. And Kelly was just like, oh, like a second or two before that, I was talking to her and the whole group and getting everyone together. And then she just turned to her husband, whose name is also Bill. And she was just like, oh, there's a ladybug. And so there's, like that reaction. And then like she got excited that there's a ladybug there. So those kinds of little things can happen all the time. And I guarantee for even if it's just a second or two, she forgot that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly took pictures of that because that's like the gold, those moments. Those are, again, there's a time and a place for formals. There's a time and a place for the photojournalism. And then there's something in between. So it's pure posed, purely photojournalistic, don't even know the camera's there. And then there's something in between, which is kind of okay, you guys like this environment here. Maybe they really like this one part of the venue, or they like, this, they like Longwood Gardens, or they like color, and can we shoot here? Well, sure. And if they want to shoot there, I'm certainly going to put them in the place that they want to shoot and give them direction. But then I want to get them interacting with each other. And so there's these little honest interactions and reactions from each other that are like these real moments within something that I've directed. Mm-hmm. And a photographer that I really look up to, Cliff Motner, says that he doesn't stage the moments, but he sets the stage for the moments. And that's a really way to describe what I'm saying is, he's going to put them here in the environment that they like. I'm not going to put them over here when they said they love this flowers or this wall or this texture. I'm going to put them there. I'm going to, I'm not going to put them in bad light. I'm going to make sure that they look their best. And then, I get them interacting with each other, or I can interact with them. This is why it's really important to get to know the people that you're photographing. I always take notes when I meet with couples, because they tell me way too much for me to remember, which is good. They have a story to tell, how they met, what they like to do. And I know I won't be able to remember everything, especially if they book me and then we're doing their engagement session in 6 months and then they're getting married the next year. I'm not going to be able to remember all that. Right. I know myself, so I always take notes. And the number of times that I'll just reference something that I knew about them, like Lindsay and Nate. Nate's like a locksmith.
Yeah.
So, on their engagement session, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I brought up the fact that Nate's a locksmith. And I'll just be like, Nate, I want you to tell her the in-depth complexities of being a locksmith and the utter amount of respect that is earned to be a master locksmith. And sometimes I don't even have to finish what I'm saying, and they just start laughing.
Yeah.
And then that'll trigger, Lindsay will be like, oh, I told you this the other day about a locksmith, or, and then he was just like, but I was able to open up this door for our neighbor, and, you saved Mr. Reynolds down the street. And it just starts snowballing into these real moments that they have and that they bring back up. So getting to know people is very important. So that your question was, what kind of stuff am I saying?
Yeah.
What am I talking to them about? That's kind of the stuff I'm talking to them about. So sometimes it's stand here because the light's good. Sometimes I'm talking to them because of something from a creating an image standpoint, from the basics of photography, lighting, or composition. And then once they're there, some couples, although most of them don't, you can just leave them there. And you don't say a word, and they're just emoting, they're interacting, they're doing stuff. But in my experience, the vast majority of people don't. And understandably, because they're not used to having their picture taken. They're used to this,
The selfie, yeah.
this, and that's it. So unless I was taking pictures of like that, which I'm not, they really have no experience. And even if I give them permission to be themselves, I've seen it most of the time, couples, you can see them maybe kind of like, they don't know what to do. You could kind of sense that they're starting to feel uncomfortable because there's someone pointing a camera at them. And unless you're a model, you're not used to being in a photo shoot.
Of course not.
Again, other than selfie.
Sure.
But when you're like, oh, we're going to spend a few hours together, or on your wedding day, it's like, we're going to spend like 10 hours together. It's like, how do you take that on as being the person that's photographed? So in my experience, I have found it best to do everything I can to make them comfortable. And me being completely silent makes them uncomfortable most of the time. Because, and then the questions start coming up, what should I do? Is it okay if I'm standing here? Is this okay? Is this okay? So
they're worrying, and they shouldn't be.
And I'm not going to take a picture of that. They're like, oh, this is when I was worried at Longwood Gardens, and oh, here's when I was worried. When we were in the meadow, and oh, here's that part that I was worried. Like that's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So me being silent makes them uncomfortable. Me talking to them and getting them to interact with each other, who they know very well,
of course,
makes them comfortable. So to me, and this is a very ongoing debate amongst schools of thought with photography.
Okay.
Do you give people direction or don't you? So some people will say, well, if you're going to give them direction, it's going to feel stiff. And the word pose is a bad word. If you pose someone, they think that means that, they're going to be like that.
Right.
Which it doesn't mean that. And so I don't even like using the word pose. I like saying giving direction, which is a little bit more accurate. So there's the school of thought amongst the photographers that, okay, well, if you pose someone, it's going to be very stiff. And they're going to be like this at Longwood Gardens.
Right.
But that's quite a generalization, in my opinion, because the word pose is kind of like the word cook. You're going to cook me something? Well, you could cook me anything. A chef can cook any number of things. It doesn't mean it's going to be, I'm going to open up a can of Spam, plop it out. If that's what you associate with cooking, then you're going to be like, cook's a bad word.
Right.
So what could have happened at some point is people saw as posing.
Oh, posing's bad.
Right. Connected the word pose to that, and oh, that's bad. So how are they being posed? Good posing and good direction shouldn't look fake.
Sure.
Because in reality, it's not. And then so that the school of thought is, I don't give direction. I want it to look natural. And then other photographers will say, if I don't give direction, they're going to feel uncomfortable and they're not going to know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what has worked for me is that it's important for me to interact with them to some degree. I also have to know when to back off, because like I said, if a couple's interacting and they're doing a great job,
Mm-hmm.
it's important for me to know to.
That right there is, I will say, is an extremely valuable insight that and self-awareness that you have.
Right.
And that, in my opinion, is worth the big bucks. And as funny as that sounds, because
I don't charge the big bucks, but
well, you should, because
it's all relative.
You know how to, keep it under lock and key. And we were just talking about a locksmith.
Right.
Because I, as a videographer, work with plenty of photographers. Sadly, they're not all you. So I get to see a lot of different styles. And although it is interesting, and I do learn a lot, because not everyone has the same style or approach as you,
Right.
which is fine, because you have a good style and approach, but that's not the only good style
it's
approach.
what works for me. Yeah.
Right. But what I have seen is the instance where a photographer will not stop talking.
Yeah.
And what's worse, just adding that layer on of like, I understand you're trying to like get better emotions and reactions out of the couple.
Sure.
But you're actually making things a whole lot worse. Is they don't stop talking, and I don't know what the term would be, but I kind of call it like the fairy tale voice. Oh my gosh, she smiles, ha ha ha, this is so great. Right. I hear that, and I'm like,
my voice doesn't go that high at all. It just goes lower.
Yeah, I was impersonating a female photographer, but
right.
even men who are like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh, go out, like lay off a little bit. Like I understand you want to keep the energy up, but
sometimes we have to know when to pump the brakes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Most couples need something. Few couples need nothing.
Yes, I agree with that.
It's and I was talking to another photographer on photography group page about this, and she was very adamant that she was like, I don't say anything. She's like, I just tell my couples to be themselves, and she was very adamant that that's all she ever does.
Okay.
And she doesn't give them any kind of direction. She doesn't say anything. Everything is just them being them. And I've photographed a lot of people. I've seen other people photograph people. Mm-hmm. I've been a guest at weddings. I've seen people do video. Mm-hmm. And in all of my experience, I have not seen most people just completely on their own be 100% comfortable and active.
Right.
So maybe there's something in the water where she lived, and honestly, could be the truth. I'm talking about, I don't even know where she was from. I think she was from California. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a California thing. People are more free spirited, which legitimately could be, the truth. So this is just my approach. It's a approach, and it's what's worked for me. And especially when a couple is asking me questions, when a couple brings up before we even take pictures that they're uncomfortable, or they even want me to make sure let me know what I'm supposed to be doing. After that preface, I would never want to just be like,
yeah, say nothing.
I feel like I'd be just kind of leaving them there, So, but again, it's to varying degrees. Some people, it's important to really, kind of stay on top of them, and they want. I always ask couples, what are some words you would use to describe your images? And most of the time, people say fun. Most of the time, people say funny. People say romantic. But The one word is like fun.
Mhm.
People like fun, funny.
So I 100% agree that the word posed has a negative connotation.
It's a bad word.
It's the P word.
Yeah.
I actually use that to my advantage, and I kind of take that word, flip it over on its head, and I use the word half posed. So when someone hears that, they think of posed, stiff, I don't want to be posed. I say half posed. What does that entail, Christian?
Right.
Well, and it's the exact same thing as like setting the stage. I'm going to get you in the right spot. I'm going to, position your bodies a little bit so you're facing each other.
Sure.
And then, whisper something in her ear.
Right.
Whatever he says, whatever she does, whatever he does after that, up to them. And I'm going to capture it. And like, it's essentially that, but different iterations. Like once I did a staring contest, which sounds really stupid when I say it out loud, but the couple literally held each other, stuck their heads out, and they just had a staring contest. And I was like, first one who laughs loses.
Right.
And they just
Yep.
super concentrated.
And then you just hope that they're not really good at staring contests.
Well, that happened to me once.
Because then you got 15 minutes of rolling and you're like, they haven't broke.
After like,
We have to go to cocktail hour.
well, literally, they laugh after like the first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I had one couple that like went 30 to 45 seconds without laughing. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, let's move on. But
that's like an eternity. Yeah. Sometimes there's those things that you try.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, it's a disadvantage for you in that you don't do engagement videography usually.
I'm experimenting with the idea,
Yeah.
but it's not traditional. It's not a thing.
I think that would be a great thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have no problem doing that with you.
I was going to say, take me along.
Yeah, I'm shooting the engagement. You're shooting the engagement. We both shoot the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So, we of course can work together. But if a photographer is doing an engagement session with a couple, that's a tremendous advantage on the wedding day. Because like I was talking about earlier, everyone is different. In general, giving direction and interacting with people that you're photographing is very important,
Mm-hmm.
but it's to varying degrees, and some couples, like I was saying, you got to know when to kind of just let them do their thing because it's gold. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to interrupt what they're doing. And other times, you need to give more guidance, but you find that out on the engagement session. And I always tell couples, this is a warm up for the big game, really.
Oh, okay.
Because and not just for me, for them,
Mm-hmm.
because every photographer shoots different to some degree. Some are very different, some are slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell couples that if they're doing an engagement session, they're going to be able to see how I shoot. I'm going to be able to see how you guys are in front of the camera, and then come the wedding day, nothing's unexpected. They're not going to be like, oh, what's that guy's name? We hired him like a year and a half ago, and we didn't do an engagement session.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bill, he's going to be here soon. And am I supposed to know how to like pose?
Right. Yeah, you're a stranger.
Right.
You're a stranger.
I'll be honest. Like I was actually brought to tears once on a wedding day when I walked into the prep. And it was actually my birthday.
Okay.
And I did the couple's engagement session, Casey and Kyle,
Mm-hmm.
and I walked into Casey's bridal suite, and Facebook tells, of course, everyone, if you're friends with them, that it's your birthday.
Right.
I was friends with Casey on Facebook after the engagement session. I walk in, and everyone stops and sings me happy birthday.
What?
And I'm like, wow. I'm like, that was really amazing. And And Casey just ran up to me and gave me a big hug. And everyone was just like, Bill's here. I'm like, I don't know who any of you are other than Casey.
Right.
So that would not have happened without, that's all because of an engagement session. You did the engagement session. You got to know them. We became friends on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
She knew it was my birthday. She told all of her friends, and they sang me happy birthday. Like it was crazy, but literally because of an engagement session.
So I have been toying around with this idea for a little bit. I threw like a little feeler, I guess, out on Instagram story and just got some people's opinions and whatnot. And ultimately, same thing. Like, I don't have the advantages that a photographer has with the engagement session because it's not common. And it's like, okay, how do we do this? And most photographers include the engagement session with the booking of the wedding.
Right.
Because it's to everyone's advantage. Like, there's no reason to charge extra for it because
you will get happy birthday sung to you.
Yes.
That's
every time.
Moral of the story.
Every time.
No matter what day it is.
True.
Yes. Every single bridal suite you walk into. Or I shouldn't just say bridal suite. Anytime you walk into prep, if it's 2 guys, 2 women getting married.
Any room you walk into, people better sing you happy birthday.
And it's not even a wedding. So now we've gone beyond even a wedding. If you do an engagement session and you walk into any room ever for the rest of your life, everyone will sing happy birthday to you.
I feel like we might be getting a little stretched from the truth.
No.
You think? No.
This is the magic of engagement sessions.
Well,
so
then
the moral of the story, boys and girls, always have an engagement session.
I am very excited then to do an engagement session for video because I want happy birthday sung to me.
Yeah.
Especially with my birthday coming up soon.
It will happen.
I had this idea. I want to share part of me with the couple. It's not just, them sharing like themselves with me. Like, that's a one-way street, and that's just not how I like to operate. So, I like to be a two-way street. So, and I would love personally to just do more rustic barn outdoor weddings because that's kind of my jam. So I had this idea of a camping engagement session where the couple and I will reserve a campsite, at a state park, $20 a night. And we get there, we do it for one night, get there at night or get there in the afternoon, set up everything. Basically, like, I would film them doing all of tasks together. And you're an Eagle Scout. That camping is a team, it's a team sport essentially.
Sure.
Like having, a partner there to help set up camp and do everything
it's certainly a
big.
lot easier with someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
So having that someone else being your significant other, there's a lot to do. And I wanted to create I don't know, like a 3 to 5 minute video, just of them camping for the night and doing, of course, like the cutesy stuff too, like roasting s'mores and cuddling by the fire, which, it's fun. And then hiking and whatever, like one night, very low key. And then obviously I'm not filming at all times. I'm still filming a lot, but I'm not filming at all times. When I'm not filming, I'm also, camping. So I'm interacting with them. I'm talking with them. We're eating a meal together. And now that's a long time.
It's like an adventure session.
Right. An adventure session. Sir, I might take that term.
That goes above and beyond.
An adventure session. Okay.
Session. Yeah. It's an adventure session.
I like that.
Yeah.
So an adventure session I would like to do, and only the right type of couple would do it.
Sure. Not for everyone.
No, and totally fine because I would not be able to go camping with every single couple. But, the 3 or 4 couples a year that are like, yeah, we go camping all the time. Christian, let's go camping. I'll include it, in my wedding film package. Like, I just want to get to know you. I want to give you a little, sneak peek of what it's like to work with me and have a video camera in your face in the least creepy way possible.
Yeah, sure.
Because otherwise, I'm going to show up to your wedding and it's going to be, you're going to have me following you for 10 hours. And if you're not comfortable with me, it's not as fun.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
So that just about wraps up the podcast today. If you want to check out Bill and see more of his work, learn more about him, you can find Bill at Photosynthesis on Instagram, Facebook, and obviously your website. Yes?
Yeah, all of the above. Photo_synth_photo on Instagram. www.photosynthphoto.com for my website. And just type in photosynthesis photography on Facebook, and that's me. Unless you find a place in Texas, and that's not me. Because there is another photosynthesis out there somewhere.
Did not know that. That's interesting.
It's not me. I am in Bethlehem, Easton, Pennsylvania.
Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
All right. Talk to you later, guys. See ya.